I'm still not real clear. I've tried to think about this whole thing of moving winter so that it's the second summer, so to speak, which is what we've had years ago. And all I can figure out is, it just seems to me it pushes, we just roll the problem over to the final year and we say, well, someday we'll address it, but in the meantime we will have gotten rid of the problem this year. Is that basically all it's doing?
Can I just hold on that question? And I think that Dr. Rocha will answer that.
You know, I think your question is like the key hot button question. Okay, so if you don't mind, let me show you the answer to your question, because I came prepared to answer it. First of all, thanks to Rick, and we'll just kind of go back and forth. But this is the budget sheet. It's up there up on the web. But let's go to the other sheet, and in the course of this, I'll try and be very brief. And of course, we have Dean Akadumi here, and it's a go back to the front page, and this is the hot button issue, the so-called we're cutting winter session issue, which is not a proposal. Okay, this is a sheet that Dean Sabah prepared for the Board of Trustees in December. And let me just go to his numbers, okay? First of all, if you can see that and if you can orient it, and if you can look at this line right here, okay, this line right there, okay, you'll see that this, in the year that we're in, 2010-11, right? Last summer, we offered 395 sections. In the fall, 24-25 sections. That is the number of class sections. In the winter that we just concluded 2 weeks ago, we offered 358 sections. Now these counts may be off a little bit because we have to do the final accounting of it. In the spring that we just started, 2464 sections. And in the summer, I'm sorry, and then that ends it, because the summer won't be until summer of 11 and July. So if you count up summer, fall, winter, and spring of the year that we're in right now, that's a total of 5,642 sections, okay? And that's more sections than last year. So it is, so it is a fact that we're offering more sections than we did last year, even though we are considerably over our funding. Last year, we received funding for 22,200 students. We only received funding for 20,537 full-time equivalent students. This year, we are projecting to serve even more students, 23,800 students. So we're serving more students, not less. And the state is only going to send us enough money for 21,000 students. The gap, so that's how many we're over. Now the plan for next year is not to cut any current students, but somehow over a period of time, we have to get our enrollment sections down to about the level that the state is sending us. Okay, now to your question. And it is a fact that and I'm speaking for Sabah here, so I'm doing my Sabah invitation. But when this is a presentation that Sabah presented to the Board of Trustees. What Sabah was saying wasn't saying that we're going to cut 600 sections. What Sabah was saying that if you look at that number, and you look at this number, okay, that would take about a cut of 600 sections to eliminate this many students and get down within our budget. So in other words, for the last 1, 2, 3, 4 years, all right, we have been spending more money than the state has been sending us. Okay? I should also note that this right here, more sections this year than last year, we're the only one of the 72 community college districts for which this is so. Every single one other of the 72 districts, their sections are lower this year than last year. So, Sabah was just saying that you'd have to get this down to about 5,000 sections to balance the budget. Well, $5,000 to do that would be an injury to students, and we already have a commitment to the students who are enrolled. We may have to do some adjustment to the intake, but we have to fulfill our commitment to the students who are currently enrolled and get them out and through. So when the Enrollment Management Committee met, started meeting in January, when all this, Governor Brown, presented his budget proposal, we gave the Enrollment Management Committee a task to begin to do your modeling based on 300 and 600. Okay, because 600 is where we're going to have to go, but in my judgment, I told the Enrollment Management Committee, we cannot do 600 in a year, because that would be too much dislocation for our students. See if you can figure out 300. How we take down 300 sections. Okay, and again, this is not a cut, that this actually, as Rick said, this is a reduction in workload. A reduction in workload is an order by the state chancellor to reduce our workload so that we're not taking more students than we're being funded for, because that's just not consistent with academic excellence. So Chancellor Jack Scott has essentially said that in the new budget that we have to reduce the number of sections, in other words, our faculty workload. So you see how many sections that we have. Now usually, most enrollment management principles, in the old days when the budget was okay, you use these two, not for your main sections, you use this for growth. Okay, well there is no more growth, all right? So the Enrollment Management Committee got in a room and they projected some scenarios, and their proposal, which I thought was a stroke of genius, was to take the winter, all right, and to take it out and take the 300 sections or so and put it into a summer one. And therefore to collapse the fall and the spring, right? And then to defer the decision, And when they spoke of that, I even said, well look, if you go ahead and propose that, and if we were to accept the proposal, and I have not, all right, we would even find a way for 1 year to see if we could fund those sections out there in the summer one. So no faculty and no students would be affected, except for the fact that these sections would be migrated to a summer one. And then you'd have a normal academic year. All right. Now we heard from the Senate's input that the faculty is opposed and the students are opposed to taking the winter sections out. But as you just heard from Rick, that doesn't mean, I think sometimes people had this sense that, well, if we don't take winter out, we don't cut any sections. What Rick just told us is that if we leave this winter here, which is fine, we still have to find a way out of 1, 2, 3, and 4 to reduce by 300 sections. And so I thought the enrollment management's logic that you don't usually want to, if you're going to reduce sections, you don't usually want to reduce your primary terms, okay? So they were looking at the winter first. But even so, whatever the consensus is, we will have to, whether you go, a little here, a little here, a little here, a little here, those 300 sections are going to come out. Which means that some of those section reductions will happen as early as this summer. That's why I thought, and this is not my proposal, this is just math, that the enrollment management and the budget committees that you sit on, I'm not in those committee meetings, I just received the recommendations and I've received no certain recommendation yet. So I think sometimes the debate has been, well, we keep winter session or not. That's not the debate. We keep winter section, but we still have to reduce the budget for next year to balance it. And that's why I thought, but it's cool. We don't have to worry about that for now. I thought the idea of taking this out and making the calendar a more normal calendar. We're one of the few colleges with a winter session this long. And putting the fall and the spring together so students could proceed in a normal academic year, and then promising at least for 1 year that we would try and fund these sections next year so there still wouldn't be any appreciable cut next year. I thought that was a pretty cool idea. But I think it got out that we were going to, just slash the winter session and so on. But you look confused.
We already said that we're going to get rid of 600 sections total. That's a goal. So 300 we're going to try to address this year. But when we close down winter and we move that, theoretically at least, that program to the second summer, you've now just enlarged that following year by an additional 300, whereas that year the goal was to decrease another 300 out of that year, plus now...
That's right.
Right, plus now you also have to deal with figuring out how to delete not only those 300 that you were planning to, but the equivalent ones that you've just moved into the second section of summer.
You are correct.
But you know, why would we want to do that and hit that year so hard? The other thing I'm not hearing anybody address is, okay, if we drop, say, a total winter session, it will hit probably all the divisions. I'm not sure how equal it is with the way stuff is spread. But one of the big reasons why I thought we went into the winter session, at least in the math division, one of the big pluses is those students who aren't successful in the fall, this way they get to jump right in, retake that class, and that means when spring comes, they're right where they should have been had they not gotten a D or an F or a W in the fall. So maybe that isn't the theory that is still, I'd have to ask Crystal to run some numbers and see, even in terms of students, how many of them really take advantage of winter for that reason, because they just didn't pass something that's required. Because I think that's a key piece, at least in my mind. When we take winter out, it means all the students that didn't pass in their math class, they're now going to have to take that same class and sit there all spring. Now, it's true there will be 2 times in the summer when they could double up their math, but I never encourage the students to take a class like that. So I'm trying to think of the students' needs in what we're doing here. But I also think the underlying thing is when we go to delete these 300, it's the same thing we've been up against for several years, is trying to find 300 to delete, and all of us will probably get in there and fight for every little thing that our division teaches and say, don't get rid of mine, go look at theirs, they've got some extra ones, get rid of theirs. So I know that it's always been an issue how we're going to do this, but I just want us to look at the long haul and not just look at...
Right. But does this at least make it clear where the sections come from?
Oh,
yeah,
that wasn't really my question. My question was more the philosophy of what we're doing.
Right, and I want to make it clear that I'm not arguing for the winter session proposal, but I think you framed the question correctly, right? That was a proposal to defer the possibility of cuts. But if we decide together, which I'm completely open to keep the current calendar, we will have to begin the cuts this summer. There's no way that we avoid cuts. I'm not arguing for the proposal, but what I also heard and again, that's why one thing I want to say, let's take our time. We don't have to decide tonight. Let's slow this down. You don't have to get a budget to the board until June-ish, and so on. As a practical matter, we have to decide together, but, by June 1st is the latest, because that's, basically June 1st is the end of the semester, and, and then we'll have, exams and commencement and so on. But I say that, so we have some time to work through this, but I'll also say that I think what I was hearing from the Enrollment Management Committee, if you don't take the whole winter session out, you're going to have to cut some from winter session. Some. That makes the winter session now becoming so small that you begin to start to think about, the greatest good for the greatest number. It is true what you're saying, that remember the old days when students could repeat a class? Well, they can't anymore. There's no seats. Students are not able to count on. I always tell students, you get in your seat, you keep in your seat, go to the class, and get a C or better. Because you are not guaranteed that you're going to get that course in the winter or the spring or the fall. Pass it the first time. And if you can't, ask for help and get counseling so that you can get into the right track. But this is not the old days. There are no seats available for students to just, okay, I didn't make it, so I'll take it in the winter. If you took this, a proportional reduction, you start to get this winter, say, down to 300 sections. We're sitting here for 2 months serving a few thousand students, and we have 31,500. So the last point I'd make on that, on the efficiencies, to answer your question about getting smaller, yes, we're going to get smaller. Okay, I don't have a plan for getting smaller, but what we're going to do is, together when a position is vacated, we're going to go on a case-by-case basis. And obviously, you want to keep instruction first. So wherever we can reduce the size and cost of administration and support, you want to put all of your money, if possible, into instruction, students and teachers. Okay, so we don't have a plan to to take positions out. I'm also very proud of the fact that we're one of the few districts that is not gone to layoff or furlough or salary reduction, and we will not. That's one of my parameters to all of the committees. Figure this out without layoff, furlough, salary reduction, and we have. The classified staff, no matter what we do, is going to get smaller next year. The administration, no matter what we do, is going to be smaller next year. We're not reorganizing the divisions. If we get a dean retirement, we'll get a acting or an interim dean and keep rolling on through. But the administration and the staff is going to have to get smaller. That's not good news if you're a classified staff member. And now our classified staff, and the burden falls primarily on them, are responsible for doing 4 starts a year. Okay? Well, you need to spend some time with our staff when they're trying to gin up a start. So to spend so much of our staff time to gin up starts this small, it starts to get to be diminishing returns. And so to reduce the number of starts from 4 to 3 is also a kind of a more global efficiency issue. And again, I'm not making a case for it, but I'm just stating what I've heard. There are many deans who have argued for, because the winter session is injuring their academic program, but I'll leave it to the deans to enter that discussion. That's not a my deal. And then finally this, okay? If you go into the classrooms, you will notice that we have need of renovation, repairs, and equipment. We need more computer labs. Some of the chairs are broken. We need paint and carpet. All right? We are never down. We never have downtime in this college. We are never able to, in a longer summer, to close parts of a building for 4 months and let our facilities, and you know what? We have the money. In the capital accounts and our renovation accounts, we have the money to put in computer labs, more computers, paint and carpet, new chairs, smart classrooms. But it takes 3 or 4 months to do those projects. No?
We're not going to give you 3 or 4 months no matter what we do. How are we going to do that?
Well, if you're going to have a summer of about, whatever it is, right? You don't have 30,000 students here. You have 5. So you don't have to do your summer so that all the students are in every single building. What most colleges do is they run their summer, they assign the classrooms so that you go into certain classrooms, they close off other buildings and classrooms and work on those for 4 months so that you can put in a computer lab. It takes, we just don't have a moment in which we are ever able to do a reno project, and they're desperately needed. Now again, I'm not arguing for removing the winter session, but you know what? Just as you said, it's 300 this year, let's take the cut, I hear what you're saying, and then next year it'll be 300. And then at that point, when these two things these two things get down to about 200, you know, at what point, you know, are you reaching diminishing returns? And the last point is, don't take my word for it or the enrollment manager. At a certain point, what I'd ask you to do is to bring, if you want to, bring in some experienced enrollment managers from the outside. I don't think there is anyone that would advise us to be running our winter and summer the way we're doing. It doesn't norm with Cal State. It doesn't norm with just about any enrollment management principle in which you say that your primary responsibility is to your primary terms. You have to protect those at all costs. And I am going to look very, very closely at any proposal that bores into fall and spring.